If you have debt and you can't seem to get out of it, this video is for you. Today, I am going to share 5 practical tips to help you navigate this journey to pay off debt, because I want you to take back control of your finances. So I'm always talking about building wealth on this channel, money management, your money mindset, but paying down debt has the same powerful effect on your financial progress like everything else does. When you reduce the interest that you're paying to other entities, it means you're keeping more money in your possession, more money that you can apply to different wealth building activities. Using money to pay down your debt increases your net worth, and it also does it over time because you won't be paying that interest anymore. Now, paying off debt isn't just about the numbers though. For a lot of people, debt is this heavy, heavy burden. I know because I've had my own amounts of debt in my life. I've had debt, I've been debt-free, I've been in debt again. With this video, I want to help you start moving towards the idea that there is freedom from this debt. It is possible. It can feel overwhelming depending on your specific situation, but I hope you can start to just make small progress towards getting out of it. Hello and welcome. I'm Lissa, a certified financial planner and a personal finance expert. On this channel, I am here to teach personal finance education and to teach you to have an abundance mindset. And I specifically want to help women of color build wealth. Everyone is welcome here, but I want to help historically marginalized groups, and that includes women and people of color. So if I was struggling to get out of my debt, what I would do first is I would get crystal clear on my numbers. In order to tackle debt, you have to know what you're dealing with. This simply means to gather all of your debt information in one place and understand all of the numbers associated with it. Now, in my work as a financial counselor and in my own experience back in the day, I know that even just looking at all of your debts can be off-putting. Some people have one debt they're trying to pay off, some people have 10. Looking at your debts can sometimes remind you of past decisions that you wish you hadn't made. It can reignite these fears that you're going to be stuck in debt for the rest of your life. Or it can just simply be tough to look at, right? Because it's a hurdle and it prevents you from living the life you want to live when you're having to dedicate money that you work really hard for towards this debt instead of being able to use it for other things. So I fully understand how difficult it could be just to even look at your debt. I just want to motivate you to take this step. You have to know that the best way to get out of debt and the best way to succeed financially is to be strategic about it. And you can't be strategic if you do not know where you stand. You have to be proactive about knowing where you currently stand. And for your debt, that means gathering all the information and looking at it. So I want you to start by sitting down in a quiet space and write down everything you owe, right? Do you have credit cards, student loans, medical bills, personal loans, auto loans, everything? You can utilize statements or your login information to your various accounts to help start this list and gather the information. So the very basics of what you want to list out are your debts. So who do you owe? Who is the lender's name or the creditor's name? Who do you actually have to pay? Take note of your outstanding balance. So this is typically your principal balance, or another way of looking at it is if you had this amount today and you paid it to this creditor or lender, you'd be free from the debt. So what is that balance? You also want to understand your minimum payment. How much do they require from you on a monthly basis? Because that's going to help you plan and strategize. You also want to know the due date because you have to plan it around all of your other bills and all of your other competing priorities. And finally, you also want to take note of the interest rate. Now, if you want to take it a step further in terms of getting crystal clear with your numbers, I think you can get crystal clear with even more than that. So if you want to be an overachiever right now, which is a good thing, then I also want you to write down how you got into this debt, like why you got into this debt in the first place, and just reflect to yourself, was it worth it? You might have some yeses in there, you might have some nos. This is a no judgment zone. The whole goal is to just build an awareness around how and why you got into that debt. So hopefully it can help motivate you to avoid debt in the future. So using a spreadsheet can be really helpful for gathering all of this information, but you can also jot it down on a piece of paper. Of course, I love making things easy for you guys, so I do have a free spreadsheet template to help you gather your information for your debts. I will drop that link in the description. It is my debt payoff tracker and it's very simple to use. The most important thing you do, whether it's using my resource or something else, is that you gather this information and you get it all in one place. So the next thing I would do if I was overwhelmed by my debts and just couldn't get out of it is, number 2, I would come up with a game plan. So now you have all the information. You know what your debts are, big or small, you know what they look like. Coming up with a game plan is coming up with your plan of attack. Now, if you plan to get my free spreadsheet, this is going to help walk you through it. Having a plan is going to transform your debt from something that controls you, that feels nebulous, that feels impossible to get out of, to something that you're actively working to conquer, something you're actively working towards getting out of. So you have a list of all of your debts. I want you to note a few things. How many different debts are you managing? Is this number in itself overwhelming? Because that could influence your game plan, right? If you have way too many that you can't even manage which bill is due when, you might consider consolidation, or you might consider using the debt snowball method. The debt snowball method basically has you pay the minimums on all of your debts, but you add extra amounts to pay down the smallest debt first. Because what this does is, let's say you have 8 different debts, it's going to get you to 7 a lot sooner, right? If you can just knock out that smallest debt. So knowing how many debts you have can help you strategize. Now, another thing you can take note of is how much are these debts? How much are the biggest debts? You might want to run these through a debt payoff calculator, which I can link in the description, just to get a gauge of how long it would take to pay off the debt, right? If your current approach is paying the minimums, then maybe you go into a calculator, put in the information, and you realize, oh shoot, that's gonna take me forever. What happens if I add $10 a month? What's gonna happen and how is it gonna change? So you just wanna play around and see what motivates you to take action and get out of this debt sooner. Another thing you wanna look at as you're coming up with a game plan is your interest rates. Are these considered low? Are they considered high? There's not a standard key to consider what is low or high, but generally when people say low interest, they're typically saying under 5 or 6%. Anything around 6 to 10% is more in the middle, and debts with 11% interest or higher are typically considered high, but those numbers can vary slightly. If you have a lot of higher interest debt, it's going to be harder to get out of debt because you're paying bigger amounts of interest. So in this case, in order to strategize, you might want to consider the debt avalanche method, which means you're going to pay the minimums on all the debts, but you're going to throw extra money towards the debt with the highest interest. Once that's paid off, you're going to take the payment you were making towards that and roll it over into the next biggest interest rate. So there are a lot of different strategies to taking on debt, whether you consolidate first, whether you use the snowball method or the avalanche method. The point is you want to create a game plan. Don't just pay off your debts all willy-nilly. Have all the info in one place and come up with the plan and implement it. All right, number 3. Here's what I'd do if I was struggling to get out of debt. I would get my cash flow under control. Before you can actually make meaningful progress towards paying off debt, you have to actually have your cash flow at a good place. What this means is you are living within your means. In order to know if you're living within your means, you need to know your money coming in versus your money going out. So you want to look at all the money that comes in on a monthly basis and compare that to how much you spend. If you are living within your means, then this is a good thing. It actually means 2 different things. It means 1, you're not going deeper into debt. And 2, it means that you have extra money that you can put towards debt so that you can get out of debt faster. Now, on the flip side, if you are not currently living within your means and you're digging yourself a bigger hole of debt, this is going to be of the utmost importance. You have to get your cash flow under control. One way to do this is to take a look at your expenses and see what you can cut down. Now, the other approach to getting your cash flow under control is number 4, to make more money. So if you are struggling to get out of debt, obviously making more money can get a lot of us into a better place financially, but this becomes something you might want to dedicate some time and energy towards. The only other way to accelerate getting out of debt is to have more money to put towards the debt. So oftentimes making more money isn't always straightforward and it's not always immediate. But if you are in a lot of debt and you really want to get out of it, go work those paths. Find a way to make more money. Do you take on a temporary side hustle? Do you talk to your boss about the path towards your next raise and try to accelerate that? Do you look for other jobs in your industry or even outside of your industry that would pay more? If your goal is to get out of debt, don't get comfortable with where you're at. Know that there is always more money to be made. It just takes being proactive about it. All right. One more item on the list, but real quick because I forgot to say it earlier. If you're getting something out of this video, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It really helps out my channel, and I just want to keep cranking out these videos and help you guys in your own personal finance journeys. All right, let's wrap up the list. Number 5, if I could not get out of debt, what I would do is I would set milestones and regular check-ins. So I would suggest setting milestones so that there would be reasons to celebrate the journey along the way. Being debt-free is great, but that is a very massive goal depending on where you currently stand. Depending on how many multiple debts you have, maybe you celebrate every time you clear one out. Or maybe you celebrate anytime you put an additional amount towards your payment. You got to give yourself credit for the small wins. Because if you don't have these clear progress markers along the way, it can feel like this endless grind to pay off debt, and you might get demotivated thinking that it's never going to happen. So make sure you have various checkpoints to remind you of your progress and how hard you are working to get out of this debt. All right, and the second part of this is to check in with yourself. So I said that you should gather all the information on your debts and come up with a game plan and then put that game plan in motion. I would still try to set aside time every few months to sit down and re-review those debt numbers. You'll have to update those amounts because if you continue and stay on your plan, those debts will be paid down. You want to update your plan accordingly and see if you want to make any changes to how you're attacking your debt. It also gives you a chance to see if your plan is effective or not. If you didn't make much progress and your debt is still in the same place, maybe you have to make bigger adjustments, put even more towards your debt, or consider consolidation, or consider other approaches. The worst thing you can do is come up with a plan, don't check in on it for 6 months or 12 months and realize that the plan wasn't working. So at least at the very beginning when you're starting, come up with a plan, put it in motion, and check in on it. All right, before we wrap up, I do have one bonus tip, and that is I suggest creating a visual tracker. So you could do a progress bar on a spreadsheet. You could do a jar, a physical jar where you add $1 every time you make a debt payment. But if you can visualize your process in some way, you can stay motivated. You might not be able to see your debt shrink on a day-to-day basis in real time, but as long as you can remind yourself on an ongoing basis that you are taking action and making progress, you'll be able to stick it through, and then 3 months, 6 months, 2 years later, you'll be able to see major progress on those debts. All right, I hope this helped, and if you are on that debt payoff journey, keep me posted in the comments. Let me know because I'd love to hear from you. All right, until next time, peace out.